Well, this is a true story, and Connie was with me when we saw this, and a minister and his wife, a kind of an elderly minister,
We know his wife.
and a basketball coach and his wife, very close friends of ours, and two friends and another two people that were in our Bible study. And we were in Carthage because every year, or used to be, I'm not sure if it's still true, in Carthage at the cemetery, the Vietnamese community comes out and they do wonderful Christmas displays. And people go down and they drive through the display, and it's really a very enjoyable time. And we had gone with our Bible study group there to have dinner, and then we went to the Christmas display. And when we left there, it was probably about 9 o'clock in the evening, and it was quite dark, being December, of course, very near Christmas time. As we were driving down the street to turn on, I think it's 96 highway that comes out of Carthage, back to Springfield, I looked out the driver's side window. I was driving a 10-passenger van, and I looked out the driver's side window, and there, coming over the trees very slowly, was an object that it was phenomenal, and I didn't even know what to say about it. So I just jammed on the brakes, and I said, "Get out of the car and see this." Well, all 10 of us piled out of the car and stood in front of the car, as were all the cars around us at that time. And coming over the horizon and over the trees was a large, triangular-shaped flying object of some type that had lights along the front side, and it had lights along the rear side, very triangular. There was no sound that was emitted, but it was so large that it filled your vision from left to right. So you had to look left to see the end of it. You had to look right to see the end of it. We first of all theorized it must be miles in the air because there was no sound. And it was moving so slowly. That was the thing that made us think it was high, because you know when an object's very high and moves across the sky, you can watch it for some period of time. And this was not just zipping by at all. We were watching it come out of the horizon, and it was over our heads. And we looked up, and the size of it was literally phenomenal. It looked as if it were 2 or 3 football fields long to those of us who were seeing this. And then, just as slowly, it went over our heads and then disappeared off into the distance. I went to a payphone. We didn't have cell phones back then. And I called my son and daughter at home, and I said, "Be on the lookout for this," because it looked like it was heading towards Springfield. And be on the lookout for this, or something that's flying over that we just can't identify. The next morning in the newspaper, there was news of sightings of this particular object from South Dakota to Texas, which would indicate if they could see it in South Dakota and Texas, 1,100, 1,200 miles apart, either this thing was truly humongous, or there were several of them running around. We didn't know exactly which would be true.
What year?
This was about 1988 or 9, I think. You may remember. There was a headline in the Springfield paper that morning about the thousands of people in southwest Missouri who had seen this unidentified flying object. Some days later, I think there was a release that the government said, or someone said, that a Russian spaceship had re-entered the atmosphere and was breaking up in the atmosphere, and that's how they accounted, or that's what they said about this particular object that we saw, or at least an object that may have been seen from South Dakota to Texas. What we saw, however, was not in any way disorganized or in any way sporadic or breaking up of anything. It was simply something that was flying very level. It was bigger than we could comprehend, and moving very deliberately and quietly and slowly. So, had someone told me that story, I would have said, I wouldn't have believed it, because I tended never to really take much stock in stories like this. But we know that we saw it, and we had plenty of witnesses, and there were a few explanations that were not satisfactory. So that was our experience with an actual UFO, an unidentified object.
Tell us about what it was like getting back in the van. Was there any conversation?
No, there was not. We were totally and completely speechless, all of us. And we were a very, very talkative group. I don't think for maybe 3 or 4 minutes anyone said anything. We were all processing in her mind. What is it that?
Connie did say something?
No,
Well, I
Connie.
was the first one after that. I said, what?
Yeah, she was the first to speak, but it was a few minutes, and
What?
You're coming.
and of course none of us had an answer. So it was pretty quiet all the way home. We were just trying to process what is it that we just saw.